Good morning. I'd like to call to order the annual board meeting, Washington County Board of Supervisors, on the 19th of November, 2021. Supervisor Clary, will you lead us in the prayer, please?
Thank you, sir. Dear Father, as we enter into the Thanksgiving season, help us to be present in all your gifts. Please especially be with those that have lost loved ones, are scared or fearful, those that are working diligently to keep our community safe, and all of our Washington County employees. Thank you for your presence today as we move into the new year. In your name, amen.
Amen. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In case of fire or other emergency, there's three exits to this room, there, and there. In case of that emergency, please exit the room, find the nearest stairway, go down the stairway and clear the building. If you need assistance to get out of the building, please ask for help. Please balance your cell phones for this meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor O'Brien. We'll now do the roll call, please.
Mr. Hankey.
Here.
Mrs. Fedler.
I'm here.
Mr. Ferguson.
Here.
Mr. Shaw.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Fisher.
Here.
Mr. Hicks.
Here.
Mr. Ward.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Mr. Half. I think he just came on.
I don't see him yet. He's connecting to audio.
It was just a minute, okay.
He's
Mr.
there.
Dana's here, okay. Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Skelly.
Here.
Mr. Hogan.
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
All right, Mrs. Clary. Here. Mr. Griffith.
Here.
Mr. Rozelle.
Here.
Mr. Half is here.
Yes.
We got you, Dana. Thank you. Okay. We now have the public hearing, 2022 for the tentative budget. Clerk, will read the notice, please.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Washington will meet in the Supervisors Chambers, Washington County Office Building B, Fort Edward, New York, and via Zoom at 10:05 a.m. on the 19th day of November, 2021, for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the tentative budget of said county for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2022. Pursuant to Section 359 of the county law, the maximum salaries that may be fixed and payable during said fiscal year to members of said Board of Supervisors, Chairman, and Vice Chairman thereof, and Budget Officer, respectively, are hereby specified as follows. Members of the Board of Supervisors, 22,116. Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, 37,407. Vice Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, 27,587. Budget Officer, 39,793. Please take further notice that a copy of said 2022 tentative budget is available on the county website or by contacting the Washington County Board of Supervisors office. Please take further notice that comments for the public comment portion of the public hearing can also be via Zoom. Contact the office to register, sent in advance of the meeting via email or mail. By order of the Board of Supervisors, dated October 28, 2021.
Okay, the public hearing is open. Is there any comments? Would anyone like to speak on the budget? Going once? Going twice? Going three times, and I see no one on Zoom. Do you see anybody? Okay, no one there. So at this point in time, we will close the public hearing. It looks like about 10:07, 10:08.
10:07.
10:07, got it. Okay, we will now move on to the condensed minutes. The minutes of the October 15th and 26th meetings are approved as mailed unless there are any additions or corrections. Does anyone have any additions or corrections? See none? We will move on to communications.
No communications this month.
No communications, okay. COVID-19 update and report. Tim, are you available?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Share my screen here real quick and we'll run through this morning's report. Much different than last month. Certainly we're headed in the extreme wrong direction for us right now. So we continue to update our Washington County coronavirus information site, which is online at washingtoncounyny.gov/coronavirus. Has all the latest statistics, the active cases by town map, which is done once a week, either on Fridays or over the weekend. The e-newsletter, which goes out regularly, and important links to updated information from the CDC and Department of Health. Public health operations are running at 7 days a week, full days, evenings when we're doing clinics, those kind of things. They're still using both the state and local contact tracers here. As you can see, just by the recent caseload, everything is just at an extreme high where we are currently right now. So just for comparison, last year on the 18th to this year on the 18th, last year we had 295 people in quarantine. This year we have 1,536. Our total confirmed cases last year was 379. And that was a total at that time. Our total right now is 5,710. Our active cases last year at this time was 22. Our active cases this year is 395. And then 13 hospitalizations this year to 0 at this time last year, 54 deaths to 13 last year. And the new thing you see on there in the last couple of days, just because we're at a high point, is the 12.9% 7-day average for positive test results here in the county. The biggest thing public health continues to see are people who just feel generally unwell, maybe just the onset of a cold or something like that, continuing to either go to work or go out into circulation to some kind of event. And then it turns a couple days later into a positive after they start feeling worse and get tested. So certainly just encouraging people, if you're not feeling well at any point, stay home, consider getting tested, and just make sure that if you do go and get tested and you're symptomatic, please quarantine until you get those test results. Obviously, the longer that you're around other people, you're just continuing to expose them and make that public health investigation that much more lengthy. We still are having a backlog from Vermont, upwards of 3 days in getting some of those test results. So we're encouraging anybody who has been tested in Vermont, if you get a copy of your results, please reach out to public health so they're aware of your case as soon as possible so they can start that investigation. Active case data where we are as of last night. So yesterday's statistics, 1,536 total under monitoring, 395 total active cases right now. And there's many more that are pending and being processed, and 13 hospitalizations. So this active statistics by date, everybody who is here in person has a copy of that. Otherwise, I'll send you a copy of the slides immediately afterwards. The biggest thing to note that we've had questions recently is when was our last highest number where we are today with our total active positive cases. So our total active positive cases, last highest number, 265. And that was in January of this year. So January 8th was that reported number. Obviously now, as of the last one on this slide, which would have been last Friday, we would have been up to 357. And then as of this morning, we are up to currently 395 active cases. The historical stats, these are the ones that just won't change. Obviously, the red number is total number of positives. Overall, those will just continue to grow throughout. Our total number of PUMs, you see those fluctuation by week there, and then our hospitalizations and unfortunately our deceased. There are still lots of folks out there who are possibly interested in getting vaccinated. We brought a new population into that, the 5 to 11-year-old range, that we're going to begin doing vaccination pods in December with our 5 to 11s. We've been strongly encouraging everybody to seek vaccination from your pediatrician. The biggest thing in vaccinating children is we want them to be comfortable. That's a much different setting for us, trying to gear that towards comfort and understanding versus adults who are very used to or accustomed to vaccinations, those kind of things. So if you want to be vaccinated, there's still a lot of options out there. We're doing 1 clinic a week for the most part as we go through. We're trying to move around the county and make that a regionalized thing where we're going to a school in the region and then moving to the next one. And we're trying to offer as much as we possibly can offer in one spot once a week. The pharmacies obviously are also doing vaccination again. Your local healthcare providers, some of them have started doing vaccination on top of flu shots as well. So there's a lot of different options out there. So the state testing tracker, this is the positive test by county, the 7-day average. So unfortunately, we are #1 in the state as far as the highest right now at 12.9%, with the second highest today, or as of these results this morning, being Fulton County at 12.8 and Cattaraugus County is #3 at 12.1. And those counties have kind of moved around over the last week or so, changing spots at the top tier of that. So certainly we're seeing a lot more tests and a lot more positives right now. The vaccine tracker, so just included this just for reference and awareness, 35,711 in Washington County with the completed vaccine series and 37,923 with at least one dose. The links are there, and these are all posted in our daily newsletter as well. Just an update on our breakthrough cases, which are the cases that have tested positive following becoming fully vaccinated, which is that 2 weeks post-vaccination. So we are up to 792 breakthrough cases, with 447 having received the Pfizer, 126 J&J, and 219 Moderna. Out of that total, 17 have been hospitalized of those 792 at some point during their COVID positive time, and we have had 3 that have passed away during that time. The last thing I'm going to share is a message from our public health team. I just can't reiterate enough how hard they are working right now. So we know how hard they were working in January last year when we were at 265 cases. They are working even harder than that just because the cases are just continuing to come in at a level that is just, is unseen for us here in Washington County. So really, I can't give enough credit to those folks and the ones that are still putting together time so we can try and get a vaccine clinic together a week. It's very much appreciated. So as we continue to see significant increases in our COVID-19 cases throughout our communities grow by the day, public health is asking that you please do your part, protect yourselves and your family members, consider vaccination if you haven't already, wear a mask in public settings or when spending time around others, stay home and get tested if you're not feeling well. Many recent cases are originating from inside workplaces, employee to employee transmission, full household or family spread, and at events held indoors in close quarters. And certainly we're no stranger to that. We've seen some of our own operations affected much more than we have previously in the last couple of weeks. So we really appreciate our department heads and employees that have worked with us around that, and our employees that have been here and really stepped up, certainly in some critical operations. I know our own staff has really stepped up to help cover for some that were out. So that is appreciated as well. And lastly, if you do receive a notification of a COVID-19 positive test result from a lab or a test location, please stay home. You're supposed to be isolating safely away from others, even your other household family members. Those folks will be contacted by your home county public health within a few days of further instruction. That is something we're seeing a lot of too. People are getting these test results. They go to a location and they get tested, and then they get the test results back a couple days later by text message or email, something like that. They're not often brought back into the office and consulted again. So sometimes that message isn't clearly relayed to them that if they're positive, they're to be in isolation and not exposing other people at that point. And public health will be, in touch with them within a few days to discuss that further. But thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And I hope next month we'll have a better report that we can talk about.
Any questions for Tim before he signs up? Supervisor Hogan has one.
Hey, Tim, so if you look at breakthrough cases of 35,711 fully vaccinated people in Washington County, we have 792 who have been vaccinated completely. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, Brian, you need to help me here with
2%.
It's 2.2%. 3% of the folks. So the vaccines are working. That's the message to get across. Get vaccinated, because it's 12.9% of our general population has been infected at this point. So,
Thank you.
these vaccines aren't 100%, but they're doing the job.
Yes. And they also reduce the severity of it should you get it. That's the other portion of it that's there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Supervisor Haft, does he have your hand up?
Yes, Tim, I have a question about the statistics that you list. You show persons under monitoring, 1,536, active cases, 395. An active case is somebody that is either in the hospital or under mandatory quarantine. Is that what an active case is?
So an active case is a current active lab confirmed COVID-19 positive, and they're within their 10-day isolation window. So they could be in the hospital, they could be at home. They have a lab confirmed positive that has put them in a 10-day isolation period, which is extendable depending on symptoms, but what
Okay,
the active cases actually are.
the 1,536 persons under monitoring, these are people that have been contacted by a contact tracer?
Those are people that have either are a confirmed positive or they're identified as a contact in investigation. So
Okay.
that 1,500 is in quarantine or isolation.
Or been contacted by a tracer. So my question I'm trying to get to is somebody that's been fully vaccinated, that was exposed and contacted by a contact tracer who has no symptoms, is not required to get a test, not required to isolate. Is that person one of these 1,536 people?
No, so those 1,536 people are just people that are either quarantined or isolated. So if you were a contact in an investigation, but you're not required to isolate or required to quarantine because you're vaccinated, that's not included in that number. You would not be monitored by public health unless you became symptomatic.
All right, so none of those people are in any of these statistics.
Correct.
Thank you.
Supervisor Roselle, I see your hand up. John?
Yes, I was contacted by a tracer, the family, and there was things mixed up, and I got to credit them and the public health for what they do. They had it straightened out within a matter of 20 minutes, and we've got a hell of a crew working for us here at the county. It should be recognized. Thank you, Tim.
I appreciate that. That's the public health team doing the work though.
I got Jimmy and I got Sue. Let's do Jimmy.
All right, thank you very much. Tim, can you give us an update on the hospitalizations in regards to what the current occupancy levels are at the hospitals surrounding Washington County? I know we don't have any hospitals in Washington County, but the hospitals in Warren County, Saratoga County, Bennington County, Rutland County, what's the occupancy percentage look like around us?
So I don't have the percentage offhand right now. I can just tell you everything is elevated around us. I haven't got the update from Glens Falls or Saratoga yet this morning, which public health gets those daily. So I'm not positive exactly where they are. I just know everything is elevated. Certainly ICU cases are up. And I can get that for you following the meeting. I'll touch base with KJ and we'll get that from the hospitals for you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Clary.
I just want to thank all of the public health and the CVRS, the vaccinators and the volunteers that are coming in. Having watched it firsthand, I cannot believe the dedication and abilities they bring to the ground. The Burgoyne Avenue vaccination pod last week. Roger was there, and there was other people that were there that were contributing to getting people vaccinated. People even had to wait 30 minutes in line. They were happy to be there. They were gracious. They were polite. They were doing it for the community. And I cannot thank everyone enough for the hard work they're putting into trying to keep our community safe. So thanks to all of you. And let's just keep doing it until we don't have to anymore. Thanks, Tim. Good job.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who'd like to comment before we move on? Any more questions for Tim? Seeing none, we're going to move into the committee reports, audit report. Do we have a motion to move the audit report?
Make a motion.
Supervisor Hogan?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution 219. Oh, I'm sorry, the audit report, sorry about that.
That's okay. Yes, moved. Do we have a second? So we have Supervisor Roselle, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Ferguson. And I don't believe I see anyone else. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Mortgage tax warrant.
Brian.
Brian?
Yeah, I'll move the
Second. Second by Dave. Any other seconds? Any discussion? Sue, that was a second?
That's second.
That was second by Sue Clary.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Equalization rate. Move it. Your report, moved by Brian. Is there a second? Moved by Cassie. Moved by John Rozelle. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. We have a proclamation that was designated October 29, 2021, Mark Behan Day, and that copy that's been provided to all of the supervisors. Your reading pleasure. And now we'll move down to the introduction of local laws, and the clerk will read the titles.
Board Chairman?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to have a comment on Mark Behan Day.
Yes.
So working in Warren County, I get a chance to work with Mark Behan through the pandemic when when everything closed down. We had the Economic Recovery Task Force in Warren County. Mark Behan helped to lead that up. It was a weekly call every week. It was great, and truly appreciate us recognizing Mark for all the great work he does in Warren County and with the ARCC. So thank you.
Thank you, James. Any other comments? Then we will now ask the clerk to read the titles of the local laws.
Introductory Local Law C of 2021, County of Washington, New York, introduced by Mr. Hogan. Title, a local law establishing a rate schedule of charges for the discharge of sewage into the Washington County Sewer District Number 1 sewerage system and all sewers tributary thereto for the fiscal year 2022. Introductory Local Law D of 2021, County of Washington, New York, introduced by Mr. Fisher. Title, a local law establishing a rate schedule of charges for the discharge of sewage into the Washington County Sewer District Number 2 sewerage system and all sewers tributary thereto for the fiscal year 2022.
Thank you. Deb, the supervisor's privilege of the floor. Do we have anyone that would like to have the floor today? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the introductions and resolutions. And we need a motion to set aside the rules for resolution number 261. Do we have a motion? Cassie makes the motion. Supervisor Campbell seconds. Supervisor O'Brien seconds. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 261 by Supervisor Skelly, title, ratify agreement between Washington County and Teamsters Local 294 of years 2022 to 2025 for employees of the Public Works Department Highway Division. Resolved that Washington County does hereby ratify the aforesaid agreement, and be it further resolved that the Chairman of the Board of Supervisors is hereby authorized to execute the agreement with Teamsters Local 294 in a form approved by the County Attorney.
Thank you. And we will now move to the consideration of resolutions.
Resolution number 219 by Supervisor Hogan, titled to re-levy unpaid sewer district number 1 user fees.
Chairman, moving resolution number 219, please.
Moved by Supervisor Hogan. Do we have a second? Supervisor Schindler, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Fisher. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 220 by Supervisor Fisher, title re-levy unpaid sewer district number 2 user fees.
Supervisor Fisher.
Move the resolution number 220.
Moved by Supervisor Fisher. Do we have a second? Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Fiddler, Supervisor Hogan, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor, that's it, I believe. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 221 by Supervisor Hogan, titled to reassess unpaid water rents, Town of Kingsbury.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 221, please.
Moved by Supervisor Hogan. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Wilson, and I believe that's it. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 222 by Supervisor Hicks, titled to reassess unpaid water rents, Town of Granville.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution 222.
Moved by Supervisor Hicks. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Rozell, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fedler. And I don't believe I see any others. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 223 by Supervisor Fisher, titled to reassess unpaid water rents, Town of Port Edward.
Mr. Chairman, move in resolution number 223.
Moved by Supervisor Fisher. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Cleary, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Ferguson. See no further seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 224 by Supervisor Ferguson, titled to reassess unpaid sewer number 1 and 2 user fees, Town of Dresden.
I make a motion to move 224.
Moved by Supervisor Ferguson. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Hogan, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Rozell, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Wilson. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 225 by Supervisor Wilson, titled to reassess unpaid sewer number 1 and 2 user fees, Town of Putnam.
Supervisor Wilson has moved that. He's got his hand up. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Cleary, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fedler. See no other seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 226 by Supervisor Cleary, titled to relevy unpaid water rents, Town of Salem. Chairman, moving resolution number 226.
Moved by Supervisor Cleary. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fisher. See no other seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 227 by Supervisor Hogan, titled Set Time and Place for a Public Hearing on Introductory Local Law C of 2021.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 227, please.
Moved by Supervisor Hogan. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Cleary, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Henke. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 228 by Supervisor Fisher, set time and place for a public hearing on introductory local law D of 2021.
Mr. Chairman, move in resolution number 228.
Moved by Supervisor Fisher. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Rozell, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fedler. Did I miss anyone? Supervisor Ferguson, I got. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 229 by Supervisors Fedler, Campbell, Hicks, Shaw, Skelly, Griffith, titled Set Time and Place for a Public Hearing on Parcels Requesting Inclusion in Certified Agricultural District.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 229.
Moved by Supervisor Fedler. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Cleary, Supervisor Rozell, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Skelly, Supervisor Shaw, Supervisor Ferguson. See no other seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 230 by Supervisors Fedler, Campbell, Hicks, Shaw, Skelly, Griffith, titled to establish lead agency for seeker review and set time and place for a public hearing on Washington County Consolidated Agricultural District number 6.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 230.
Moved by Supervisor Fedler. Other seconds, please. Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Cleary, Supervisor Skelly, Supervisor Shaw, Supervisor Griffith. See no other seconds. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 231 by Supervisors Fedler, Campbell, Hicks, Shaw, Skelly, Griffith, titled to establish lead agency for seeker review and set time and place for a public hearing on Washington County Consolidated Agricultural District number 7.
Moving resolution number 231.
Moved by Supervisor Fedler. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Skelly, Supervisor Rozell, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Griffith, and Supervisor Shaw. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 232 by Supervisors O'Brien, Rozell, Half, Hicks, Stedler, Ferguson, and Fisher, titled to authorize agreement with Auctions International for auction services related to real property foreclosure sales for 2022 and 2023.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 232. Moved by Supervisor O'Brien. Do we have second? Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Rozell, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Ferguson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 233 by Supervisors O'Brien, Rozell, Half, Hicks, Stedler, Ferguson, Fisher, titled to authorize sale of county-owned property in the town of Argyle to the town of Argyle.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 233. Moved by Supervisor O'Brien. Do we have a second? Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Shaw, Supervisor Wilson. Is there any discussion? Okay, we will do a roll call on this, please.
Mr. Hanky?
Abstain.
Mrs. Stedler?
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Hicks?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Half?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Skelly?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Clary? Yes. Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Rozell?
Yes.
The resolution is adopted, 3,985 yes, 275 abstain. Resolution number 234 by Supervisors O'Brien, Rozell, Halford, Stedler, Ferguson, Fisher, titled to authorize retention of Napoli Skolnick, PLLC, for litigation involving the Easton landfill.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 234. Moved by Supervisor O'Brien. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Rozell, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Ferguson. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Shaw.
Yes, I'm concerned that you're calling this the Easton landfill. This is the Washington County landfill in Easton. Am I incorrect in that thought? And if so, I'd like it to be amended to say the Washington County landfill in Easton.
We've always called it the Easton landfill here since I got here. We were putting the cap on it because it's the county's landfill in Easton. But so it's changing what you call it's not going to change who owns it. But if you'd like to do that,
Well, I would because this is a lawsuit, and I'd like it clear from the get-go. This is a Washington County landfill in Easton, even though we know here, but it's going beyond the realm of this board of supervisors. So I think it ought to be correct, since we're facing litigation or being involved in litigation. And the town of Easton is not involved in this litigation.
And you want to stay not involved? I understand. Is that a motion to amend that?
I made that motion.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay.
second.
Got a second by, go ahead, Roger, do the second.
Still have your second.
Second by Supervisor Hogan, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Griffith. Who else we got? Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Half. Okay. All right. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Campbell.
Yes, Mr. Wicks, could you fill me in because
Well,
I'm familiar?
as long as we understand, that's not going to keep the town of Easton from ever being liable for things they did when they did own it. Just that's all.
Oh, that's where I was going.
That's
If
all I
they
want.
did own it, when did we own it? Just
We
because
took-
they closed it?
We took ownership of it. We took ownership of 2 landfills back, and Dan, you probably know the dates before me.
Early 90s.
That sounds.
And
yeah.
why did you take ownership? I guess
It was part of a convoluted process to deal with bypass waste and other issues concerning the burn plant. So we not only had the land in Hartford for an ash landfill, we had a landfill that we took over from the town of Easton, and one I believe we took over from the town of Fort Ann. Both of those were to be used for what was called bypass waste in case anything, the plant couldn't take things that needed to go in, we'd have a place to put it.
So by changing the name of this, we'll not keep them out of the chain?
No. I understand Mr. Shaw's desire to clear that up, and that's why I said, go ahead and do it. That's the chain of events. We capped those I got here in the mid-90s, so it was somewhere, I think Willie Grimke was here when we finally were talking about, putting the caps on and closing the landfills. So it's been late 90s that they've been inactive.
So was it run by the county
Yeah.
at all? It was run by the county at all?
When we took them over, we were depositing waste from all over the county in both of those landfills. The one in Fort Ann and the one in Easton.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now we need to do the resolution?
Yeah,
The rest of it.
amended.
As amended. Okay, we had the seconds on that. Is there any further discussion on that one? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 235 by Supervisors Hicks, Ward, Campbell, O'Brien, Skelly, Clary, title amend staffing pattern jail.
Mr. Chairman, moving 235.
Moved by Supervisor Hicks. Do we have a second? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Ward. I see Supervisor Clary. I see no other. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 236 by Supervisors Hicks, Ward, Campbell, O'Brien, Skelly, Clary, title amend staffing pattern WIC.
Mr. Chairman, moving 236.
Moved by Supervisor Hicks. Do we have a second? Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor O'Brien. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 237 by Supervisors Hicks, Ward, Campbell, O'Brien, Skelly, Clary, title amend staffing pattern Youth Bureau alternative sentencing.
Mr. Chairman, moving 237.
Moved by Supervisor Hicks. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Henke. Supervisor Ward. See no other seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 238 by Supervisors O'Brien, Rozell, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Ferguson, Fisher, title to authorize buyback of vacation time for employees.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 238. Moved by Supervisor O'Brien. Do we have a second? Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Zell, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Wilson. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 239 by Supervisors Ward, Hogan, Half, Hicks, O'Brien, Clary, Rozell, title set fee for coroner costs, transport to St. Mary's Hospital in Amsterdam.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Supervisor, I'm sorry.
moving 239 forward.
Moved by Supervisor Ward. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Rozell. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Haft.
Recently, I heard that Dr. Sirica is getting vaccinated for COVID, so therefore he can perform this. So is this resolution moot? Is it going to continue to be at Glens Falls Hospital?
We do have a current charge in for one prior to Dr. Sikorica coming back.
So we still need to pay for that one expense.
Okay.
And Roger says if we don't use it again, we don't use it again. It's not a binding thing unless we would use it, Dana.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 240 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Ward, title amend budget, information technology for camera system.
Mr. Chairman, move resolution 240.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler. Any further? Supervisor Rozell. Any discussion? All in favor, say saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 241 by Supervisors Ward, Hogan, Half, Hicks, O'Brien, Clary, Rozell, titled to authorize chairman to sign contract with NMS Labs for forensic toxicology services.
Mr. Chairman, moving 241 forward.
Moved by Supervisor Ward. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Henke. See no other seconds. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 242 by Supervisors Clary, Campbell, Hicks, Skelly, Ferguson, Ward, Wilson, titled to authorize amendment of contract with Cambridge Valley Rescue Squad for COVID-19 rapid antigen testing. Chairman, moving resolution number 242.
Moved by Supervisor Clary. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Skelly, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Wilson. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 243 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Griffith, titled to cancel interest and penalties, Town of Fort Edward.
Moving 243. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have a second? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Fisher, Supervisor Clary. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 244 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Griffith, titled to authorize County Treasurer to enter municipal cooperation agreement for the collection of taxes, Town of Fort Anne.
Moving 244. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fisher. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 245 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Griffith, title amend budget probation to purchase radios.
Do we have any seconds? Supervisor, I'm sorry. I need to move 245 first. I jumped ahead of you there, Chairman Campbell. You moved it. All right, we're good to go. In any second, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Ward. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 246 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Griffith, title amend public safety budget for FY 2021 emergency management performance grant.
Moving 246. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Ward, Supervisor Clary. I think we got them all. So is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 247 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Griffith, title amend budget capital project H123, public safety microwave and equipment upgrades for statewide inoperable communications grant.
Moving 247. Moved by Chairman Campbell. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Ward, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Clary. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 248 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Griffith, title amend 2021 budget information technology.
Moving resolution 248. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. We have seconds, please. Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ward. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 249 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rosedale, Griffith, title amend public health budget to recognize early intervention administration grant.
Moving 249. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Clary. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 250 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rosedale, Griffith, title to amend county road machinery fund for purchase of trucks.
Moving resolution 250. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Fendler, Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Skelly, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Griffith. See no others. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 251 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rosedale, Griffith, title to amend Sewer District 2 budget for New York State DEC EPG grant.
Moving resolution 251. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Seconds, please. Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fendler, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Griffith. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 252 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rosedale, Griffith, title to amend capital project number 114, SD number 2, long-term control plan.
Moving resolution 252. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fendler, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Griffith. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 253 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Rosedale, Griffith, title official newspaper designation Democrat.
Moving 253. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fisher. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Nay.
Resolution.
No, Dana have voted no. Thank you, Dana. We got you.
Resolution number 254 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Rosedale, Griffith, title official newspaper designation Republican.
Moving resolution 254. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Fendler, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Ferguson. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Supervisor Haffton, a nay. Carried.
Resolution number 255 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Half, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rosedale, Griffith, title supplemental mortgage tax disbursement.
Moving 255. Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Fendler, Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Griffith. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 256 by Supervisor Skelly, title to authorize treasurer to issue payment for temporary easement.
Moving resolution number 256, Chairman.
Moved by Supervisor Skelly. Do we have a second?
Second.
Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Clary, and Supervisor Fisher. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Haft.
I don't see the word condemnation or eminent domain in this, but this is really what this is in order to get a temporary easement. Is that correct?
That's correct. You passed the resolution in January to allow the chairman to sign petitions. So he did.
We didn't do that, actually.
Oh, we did it this year. So this is paying for the temporary relocation of the pole, and the pole will be relocated back to where it was when the project's over.
Why is the money going to the county clerk? Is she going to hold it
Yeah.
for the
she's
landowner?
required to- Yep, she's required to hold it in escrow. That's why
For
it's
how
going
long?
to the,
For how long?
until the project's done, and then it either gets released to the person, or it gets back. But we're required to deposit the funds in escrow, so that's what we're doing.
So as soon as the project is done, that money could possibly come back to the county.
No, it should get released to the person for the temporary use of the easement. Right.
But what if that person never comes forward? How long does the county clerk have to hold it in escrow waiting for that person?
There's what's called an escheat statute, ESCHEAT statute, where it gets held for a certain amount of time and then either gets returned to the county or gets returned to the Attorney General's office for distribution. So
Is that 10 years?
I do not know.
Would it be similar to a town court that has to hold money for somebody that they can never find?
I imagine it's very similar to that process, yes.
I think that's 10 years. So Stephanie's going to have to hold, and I think into a separate bank account, $100 for 10 years.
She has an escrow account she can hold things in, yes.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay, nay.
No. Supervisor Hessel, no.
Resolution number 257 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hap, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Griffith, title amend 2022 tentative budget for mental health.
Moving 257.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Fidler, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Griffith. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 258 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hap, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Griffith, title amend the 2022 tentative budget general fund for interfund revenue from carpool fund.
Moving 258, moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have second? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Skelly, Supervisor Fidler, Supervisor Ferguson. And Ms. Tiffany? All in favor, say aye. Oh, I forgot discussion. Is there any discussion? I apologize. Seeing no discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 259 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hap, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Griffith, title amend 2022 tentative budget for county administration.
Moving resolution 259.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 260 by Supervisor Campbell, title Resolution Adopting the Budget for Fiscal Year 2022, Making Appropriations for the Conduct of County Government.
Moving resolution number 260.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Henke. Is that a discussion at the end or a second?
Mr. Chairman, move to table this resolution.
Do we have a second to that motion? On the amendment. Supervisor O'Brien. Is there any discussion? No discussion on
No discussion.
Roll call. Yep, you got a roll call. Okay, so we do the amendment first. So the amendment is what, Dan? Is to table it?
One table it.
You want to table it? You want to move the table? All right. So we'll do the roll call, please.
Mr. Henke,
No.
Mrs. Fedler,
No.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
No.
Mr. Fisher?
No.
Mr. Hick?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
No.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
No.
Mr. Skelly?
No.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
No. No.
Mrs. Clary?
No.
Mr. Griffith?
No.
Mr. Rozell?
Yes.
Yes, correct.
John, you said yes, we couldn't
Yes.
hear. You said yes, thank
Yes.
you.
The motion to table is defeated. 2,003 yes, 2,257 no.
So that's defeated, so now we go back to the regular. Back to discussion. Is there any discussion on the original resolution? Supervisor Campbell?
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody wants to discuss the budget, but I guess that's been the way for the last couple of months. So I want to go back to the last resolution. You missed me raising my hand, but that's okay.
I apologize.
That's fine. So with the amendments we made, I hope everyone realizes the tax rate values are exactly the same as last year's. And I've got them, and Debbie can put them up if anybody wants to see them. So there's no increase in the rates at all with those two resolutions, which wasn't by design because those are just two we had to correct. And with that being said, that just means that your tax increase is on new levy. It's not on anything that stayed the same. So if everyone understands that, I believe they do. I just wanted that fact known. As far as the budget itself goes, I don't know the salaries the way I thought we left it. We were going to wait till the unions decided before we went further with those, so we didn't discuss them in open session, just so that we weren't playing our hand out with the unions in public session. So I guess that's where I was on that. So the only thing that possibly could be a problem would be the tax levy, and I think we're all open to a discussion on that, a healthy discussion, I hope. And I hope that's where we're going to start and go now that it didn't get tabled. But to not even discuss the budget is really not good on our part. So I'm hoping we're going to have a discussion on that, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Anyone else? Any further discussion? Matt?
I have a series of amendments I'd like to propose, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'd like to rely upon Al to make sure I don't get off kilter by numbers as best as you can see, and Roger to make sure I don't get off kilter about discussing things in open session that really belong somewhere else. So I'll go slowly, and I'll try to explain why I want to go where I want to go.
Matt, could you remove your mask so you're clear?
Can I do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Certainly there's things in the budget that I'm not comfortable with that I don't like, and I have heard from several of the supervisors there are other things in the budget that they're not comfortable with. So considering the tabling motion was pretty much razor thin, I wouldn't say there's overwhelming support for things, and I'd like to offer amendments, and I'm not saying these amendments solve all the problems and navigate it to where we want to go, but I think it's a good starting point to have some robust discussions. I am extremely uncomfortable considering to pass a budget today that never passed Finance Committee. I'd probably rely upon Debbie. I'm not going to put her on the spot, but I'll bet she can tell me that that's never happened before, for whatever reason. So I'll try to wade in slowly here, and the amendments will pass, or they won't pass, and then we'll see where we go from there. My first amendment is to decrease the amount of the transfer from general fund to capital projects, that appropriation. I'd like to reduce that from $1 million, which is currently in the budget, to 0.
By doing that, I would also offset that by reducing the sales tax revenue by $1 million from 25 million to 24 million. My suggestion is to use 24 million as the number for our sales tax. So Al will tell us that we're probably going to hit 25.5 this year. We don't know if this is a one-off year or not. My proposal is to make that the number, make the number in the transfer, the appropriation to the capital project 0. Any dollar over 24 million would then go to capital projects, up to a maximum of 25 million. So if sales tax is 24, we're sitting tight. If it's 24.5, 500,000 goes to capital projects. If it's 25, $1 million goes to capital projects, and anything over 25 million would stay in general fund, which will potentially become fund balance. I think that gives us a cushion that we can live with the number, because I've heard a lot of feedback from supervisors that they think the $25 million number is a little bit high. We have just put about $5.5 million of stimulus money into the capital projects for 2021. So I think it's prudent to continue to fund capital projects because we have a lot going forward. But this sort of funds our excess going into capital projects, but still gives us a number we can live with in sales tax that I think we can all sleep a little more comfortable with. It's a long-winded resolution, Roger. I don't know how that goes in there, but
So my suggestion is, well, I have two suggestions. One is that the resolutions be voted on in small chunks, but if they're all part of a master plan, that you describe the master plan and then move the components. Because the budget, remember, the tentative budget as amended becomes the permanent budget. So you're going to have a record of each one of those amendments, just in case you never get around to voting on an entire budget. You're going to have those addendums. So again, if they're interdependent,
of course they're interdependent,
right.
But then again, my third amendment may be different than what I've written now based upon whether this amendment passes or not.
So I guess I'm leaving that up to you as to how you'd like to present it, but they're going to have to be itemized to a certain extent so we know exactly what we're amending.
My ultimate goal is to get the tax levy to 0, so we don't take any more money out of people's pockets. But there are other priorities that other people have in this room. But I don't see any other way of doing it unless it's one at a time. And so this amendment is to reduce the capital project appropriation to 0 and change the sales tax number to 24 million. That's as simple as I want to take it first, if that's okay.
Well, that's your first.
That's my first proposed amendment, and I'm hoping I have a second in the room.
So now we're looking for a second. We could debate that.
We have a second, okay. And then debate that.
So can we repeat that so we're clear on what we're discussing when we're voting on?
From a simple standpoint is, in the revenue, we reduce sales tax from 25 million to 24 million. And in our expenditures, we reduce transfer to capital projects from 1 million to 0 to offset that. A separate resolution, I would assume, Roger, would have to be proposed that if in the event sales tax is over $24 million, any amount between 24 and 25 gets transferred to capital projects. I'm thinking it's a separate amendment at a different point. That we can do that anytime next year.
Right, you can do that anytime. If the revenues never go over, you wouldn't need to do that.
So that's my intention, but I don't think I should do that today.
Can I ask a question?
You may, Cash.
So, Matt, if I understood you correctly, you said your ideas are dependent on if this passes, then as you go forward. Is there any reason why we can't listen to everything you have and then go back and take these amendments?
Yes,
Can you
because
give
we'd
us
be
your
jumping
whole
in.
picture? Can you give us the whole picture of what your idea is before we start passing amendments? I would
Now
feel
without
more
jumping-
comfortable.
Not without jumping in and out of executive session multiple times. I'm hoping to do that just once.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So Matt, you're going to take $1 million out of the revenue, which would really make the tax levy go sky high. But you have plans of where you're going to cut $1 million throughout the budget, right?
Correct.
It seems to me a little backwards. So if we voted yes on this, you wouldn't have to do all your other amendments because you already kind of cut the million. It just seems like the cart in front of the horse a little bit.
I've cut the revenue down by $1 million. I've cut the expense down by $1 million.
Okay, but you haven't told us how you're cutting the expenses by $1 million yet.
Transfer the capital fund.
Yes.
Right now in the budget, there's a transfer of $1 million from general funds to capital projects. That will not happen unless we exceed our sales tax number in the budget of $24 million.
Got it. Thank you.
Supervisor Campbell.
So 11 months ago, we didn't even have an administrator. 9 months ago, we got one, and a good one. And it's presented salaries where this is all headed. We know that. So as we got parameters on where we were going to go with salaries, and this came together, I came to the realization that all these people that had complained that we always kick the can down the road didn't want to kick the can down the road anymore, and now to the realization that they would like to kick the can down the road, which is kind of opposite of where I expected us to be. So we have had an influx of cash that I think the board has done a great job, including Mr. Hicks, on saving that for projects that we are going to need to do going forward. So with that being said, the reason this million was in here was to spur conversation and was to spur amendments. I'm just surprised that we want to amend it in this manner just to get the salaries, because that we figured we were going to look at as we got results from the unions. But I guess we're not, or Mr. Hicks doesn't wish to go that way. So what I wanted to say was that we said, this is your amendment, so this is what you want to do.
This amendment.
So what I want to say is, in its totality, this budget was to fix everything we ever kicked the can down the road on, and that's where we are today. As we start to dismantle these different sections, all you've done is kick the can 5 years further instead of addressing them today when you actually have money. Once you've spent that money and gotten rid of that money, there's no way to address those problems. And then it's almost like the interest rate right now at the Fed. They didn't raise interest rates to curb inflation. So inflation's going sky high with no end in sight and no way to lower the tax rate to help out later because they didn't raise it when they should. That's kind of the same thing we're going to do today. If we don't spend the money in the places we should, then where do we cut later if the money's not there and you need to do that in bad times? We aren't in bad times right now. We are in good times. We know bad times are just around the corner. And I'm more than willing to look at the tax rate, but I think to take all the money out is wrong. And I really would guess that we're at 26 million this year, 25.6 if we stay flat. We're going into Christmas season. That usually doesn't happen. We usually go flat at this end. So I would just say, hey, if you want to cut it in half, it's one thing, but to cut it all, I think we're way out of line. That's just my opinion, and we'll go from there.
Supervisor Hicks.
This is your budget, Brian. If you believe in your budget and your budget is at 25 million and we hit that number next year at 25 million, then $1 million goes into capital projects. We didn't kick anything down the road. I'm doubling down on what you're saying is going to happen. And if you're right, then everything's going to work out just fine. I'm planning that in case it doesn't go right, this is where we take care of things. So if you believe in your budget, you should support this amendment.
Well, that's your opinion. I'm more conservative than you are, let's say.
You're more conservative than I am when I'm trying to get the tax levy to zero.
He's more conservative than you are in this one.
Now, you don't realize the later costs. I'm looking 3 to 5 years out. You're looking today, and that's where our disconnect is. I'm looking at 5 years out. Everyone's looking at today. I wrote today's budget to take care of future problems. ones that we've kicked the can down the road for years. This budget was set to actually fix all of them on the one time that we actually had the most money where we didn't even sell anything. The last time we had this kind of money was when we sold PV. I was here for that, and so are you. And I gotta believe this is never happening again, and we're not gonna get bailed out to this degree again. And if we don't spend our money wisely now, and as the treasurer said, keep our foot on the pedal right now, we are going to pay for this in about 4 years. That's where I'm scared. I have no problem with changing the tax levy. I just don't think this is the way to do it.
This does not change the tax levy. It's a flat.
No, you plan on changing the tax levy. That's where you're headed. That's why you want to know where this goes before you try to change that. I'm saying I'm willing to change the tax levy. This is not the way to do it. That's just my opinion, and we'll see who's on which side.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this amendment? I see any, yes, 3.5. Yep, you moved on the screen, buddy, sorry.
I agree with Matt. Brian, you said that this year times are good. I don't see how we can have almost $6 million this year, another $6 million next year, stimulus money, and you still go very close to the tax cap. Now you're at 2.66. What's the tax cap? 2.94? Very close. I mean, you're very, very close to the tax cap when we have almost $6 million in stimulus money, unrestricted money. If you can't come in with a zero budget when you have that much money, you never will. I just can't square those two facts that we have unrestricted money, almost $6 million coming in 2022, but yet you're going to raise the levy by 2.66%. I just can't square those two facts. Thank you.
I guess my answer is just, I would rather not when times are bad is where I would go. I'm looking at preservation so that because I think they could get extremely ugly. I'm probably more on the negative side than any of the rest of you. And I would rather not stay status quo. Like I said, the million was only thrown in there as a number to spur discussion. I don't even want it at 2.87. It's already down to 2.66. I want it under 2. I'll be honest with you. That's the way I feel. This was to spur good discussion. That's what we're after. That's what we want. But
Brian,
the whole idea is when things get bad, I would like to not have a tax increase at all. But remember, as costs to the general public are going up, what are the costs to our county government that are going up? What do you think asphalt is going to cost next year? What do you think fuel is going to cost next year? All these things are costing more than we can fathom right now. We have no way of knowing what those costs are going to be. I'm just saying I don't want to be at zero, because if you're at zero, you're putting yourself in a bad spot to have to make a tough decision in tough times, where it could be a very easy decision to not increase taxes in tough times. And we're not in tough times right at the very moment. That's all.
Brian, you have things in your budget that are going to have a legacy. They're not only baked in this cake, they're going to be baked in every cake for coming forward. And that's the large increase to wages. Don't shake your head. No, that is true. You will never, Brian, please do not speak over me. You will never rescind increases in wages. We did it quite a few years ago when Gail was the budget officer. We had problems, and the only way we could do it is by furloughing all employees 2 days, because you could not rescind wages, you could not lower wages, but you can lay off people. I don't want to go there again, but that is going to happen if you have these large wage increases baked into this cake, and the legacy is it's going to go forward and forward and forward. You're talking to me about pavement prices going up and everything else. I can't support the budget the way it is. Matt has a solution to how we can have, in my opinion, a budget that I can accept.
Okay, so let's go with, you guys your hand up now. Then we'll go to you, Mr. Hankey.
So here's my problem with the budget. As other people referred to, we're talking about substantial increases in salaries. It's on the table. We have done all this in executive session, talking about what the raises are, what they're going to be. We're not being transparent. we're not letting people know what we're doing. It's our job as a board to be completely transparent with the budget and items. This is the first year since I've been here, it's my 10th year, is we're not being transparent before we pass the budget. That's not fair to our constituents. That's not fair to our taxpayers. We have to be completely transparent about what we're doing. What are you going to think they're going to come up with if we come up with something that they don't agree with and we did it all in executive session? That's not fair. We shouldn't be in that boat. We should be completely transparent about everything, whether we do it today or whether we do it, taken the table and done it a week from now. We should be completely transparent or not. We have a good reason for it, but we need to be completely transparent in this whole budget, including salaries and the amount of the salaries.
Thank you. Supervisor Henke.
Well, three things. Number one, on the subject of I told you so, as you recall, I told you so back when we were going really hard to try to get all the unions to settle at the same time, back when we were changing county administrators the time before this one. I said this was going to happen sometime. It was all going to come right at budget time. We wouldn't be able to discuss the salaries. So that's kind of where, I think we all feel uncomfortable, like Dave does, about, doing this stuff in executive session. And I said it was going to happen, and it did. Number two, stimulus funds are specifically intended to not, replace tax levy. It's intended to be something in addition to tax levy. It's not supposed to affect tax levy. So I think we should quit talking about that in those particular periods. And third, I think we've got to, have a little bit of a return to Robert's rules here. We seem to have two or three people being able to talk right in a row, and you're not supposed to be able to do that until everybody's had a chance to speak. You should get all the hands first and then return to someone who wants to make another comment.
Thank you, Bob. Point well taken. Supervisor Hogan.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a second to Mr. Hicks' two amendments, correct? There seems to be a lot of discussion unrelated to those amendments that are being offered. So, point of order. I guess I would ask if we can kind of keep the conversation to the amendment. The thing too, Brian, I do want to just follow up on something that you said. Matt seems to offer an amendment that has a trigger in it, that if we don't hit the 25 million sales tax revenue, then it drops off the $1 million contribution to capital projects, correct? I am understanding that correctly. So I guess I don't understand, what's the downside risk of looking at those amendments in that format? Because if we don't hit 25 million, what happens then in your world?
You didn't add the money to the capital plan.
Okay.
And that's the problem we've had for as long as I've been here. We've never added money.
So that's Matt. That would be Matt. What would be yours? If these amendments didn't pass, what would happen? Because we are putting $5.5 million.
Well, if the amendments didn't pass, they stay the way it is.
And that would mean we would fund an additional $1 million to capital projects. Yeah. I guess I'm with Matt on this one. Is that he's providing a downside mitigating approach to that. We are putting, did you say $5.5 million into capital projects? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Supervisor Griffin, do you have something?
I didn't have my hand up, no.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Matt,
I believe.
Well, I guess I should thank Dana now, because I'm not talking in this amendment about salaries and levies, et cetera. I'm just saying there's no change in the levy by this amendment. There's no discussion of salaries or union contracts. This is a way that we can keep the sales tax number at a number that I think we can all be comfortable with. But if the budget officer's predictions are correct and we do hit 25 million, it's going to look exactly like what's in the budget now. But it just gives us a downside hedge in the event. And if I felt we had tens of millions of dollars in capital projects and no money in there, I wouldn't do this. But we have capital projects need to be done. And we put a pretty big fund in there. So it's not like it's unfunded at the moment. So if we could just focus on this one amendment, I think I'd appreciate that. So it's just whether to make these two line item adjustments in the budget.
Cassie?
Can Brian clarify how much was the money was for capital projects? Is the $1 million is coming out of the budget and the rest of it is coming from the ARPA funds that we're not supposed to be considering during the budget?
Yes.
So
I'm saying to reduce the transfer
I get that.
from general fund
I understand that, but Bob made the point that we aren't supposed to be, sorry, I'm sick, so I don't have a good voice. Bob made the point that we're not supposed to be considering ARPA funds because they're one-time shot in the arms and they're not designed to work towards the levy. So when the comment is made about 5 million, et cetera, being put into the capital fund, isn't the significant amount of that money coming through the ARPA funds? And we really should set that aside and only look at, as in the budget year, is putting $1 million into the capital fund. I'm just looking for clarification.
This is amendment of 2022, not sending money from the general fund to the capital projects unless we exceed our sales tax goal. That's
I understand that. I understand what you're saying, Matt. I totally understand what you're saying. I'm just wanting to clarify when you're talking about 5 million, et cetera, being into the capital fund for this coming year. Some of that is coming from the budget, that $1 million that you don't want to take right now, you want to take down the road. And some of it is coming from ARPA funds, correct? That's what I'm trying to clarify.
There will be no 2022 ARPA funds going into capital projects. As proposed.
So when you say that $5 million went into the capital fund this year, Dana, I'm trying to clarify Dana's point. So that 5 million came from the ARPA funds. That's what I'm asking. Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
But that's what I'm saying, as in moving forward, we weren't supposed to consider, like when you do our own budgets, we're not supposed to consider one-time funds. They're supposed to be a nice shot and a plus. When you do a budget, you're only supposed to consider the budget numbers that you have, not one-time shot in the arm. Coming from a town where somebody used all that and I started in broke, it makes me very nervous to do that. That's what I'm trying to clarify. When you're saying $5 million went in there this year.
So we'll go to Brian and we'll come back to Dana.
Okay, so this is the kind of discussion I want to have, because this is very healthy. This is what we really want. So when I said I was looking out in future years, that's where I was going. And here's why I say that. We are looking at replacing 2 county barns right now, and how many of them are left to replace? Because they're all in the same shape. We're starting with the 2 first ones, but those are all coming down the road. And I know Matt hates the statement when I say we're poor by design. This is the design we take.
I never said that. Don't put the words in my mouth.
You told me that.
I never said it was poor by design. You said it.
I said that.
You said that. I didn't. I didn't. So don't put words in my mouth and say what that is.
Okay, gentlemen, please keep our voices down, please.
I'm agreeing with you. You said you don't like my term that I say that. That's what I just said. I didn't say you said that. I said that, and you don't like the term, which you just proved. Thank you. What I'm saying is, if you don't put money aside as we go forward for all these things, then we end up borrowing for them, paying debt service. Debt service isn't going to get cheaper in the next 5 years. It's going to get more expensive. That's the only reason I went here, was to build on that, and the only reason that I'm opposed to taking all of it away. It's all about what we have on the table that needs to be done. It's not like we haven't discussed those highway barns. We've been to visit them. We know 2 are in extreme bad shape. We're trying to fix them. But you got another 5 to do. And how do you pay that with the kind of interest that that's going to be at the time we need to do it? I don't know, but that's why I want to have this discussion. This isn't about me getting my own way. I just want to make sure you understand what we're doing, because when we make decisions like this, this is where it costs the taxpayers money that it never should have cost them. That's my concern.
Supervisor Roselle.
You know, as a supervisor, I'm ashamed of 17 of us here. And this should have been started about 2 to 3 months ago with budget workshops. And I don't think we would have got this point if we had did that. And I'm just embarrassed that we're doing this. This should have all been done in the past for the last 2 months. And I guess it's our fault we let it go this far. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, John. All right, I had, who was Supervisor Hogan?
Yeah, Brian, you just made a point again, to specific to the amendment. You said you don't want to take it away. If you don't get the 25 million, or if you do get the 25 million that you're projecting, nothing's being taken away. But that's,
Trust me.
Matt's making the good point where he's saying, if you're confident, hang on, if you're confident in the 25 million number, nothing's being taken away. What's the concern if you're confident with that number?
Oh, can I answer that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, as we do a budget year in, year out, and I don't know how many of you do your own budgets, you go from the number you had off last year. If you don't have it in the budget, you gotta add it again. If the number's in the budget, I don't have to add it again. That's the point. Now, if you start at zero, how do you get the million in for the year after?
Well, could you answer the question, what I'm saying? If you don't get the 25 million,
That's the point.
You're not answering.
Yes, I am. You're talking about taking something out of the budget and making that line zero. If you take that out and that line is zero, it's not in the budget again. So it's zero again when we start next year. You gotta add a million in.
What I'm saying is I'm referring to the 25 million sales tax. If
You're talking actual, I'm talking budget.
You don't seem to be confident in that number. That's what it feels like to me.
Oh, no.
Is that you don't feel confident.
I think next year's number's 27.
That's great.
No,
then they should get a unanimous approval, this amendment.
This is about the budget number, not the actual number. We're talking about a plan, not the actuals. That's what's different here. And if you've noticed before in the past, we've thrown in all sorts of general fund money and we've come out better and not even spent any. And the reason because it's the plan that you're going by, not the actuals. And I'm saying if you don't have it there, then next year you're gonna throw it in, and every year we're gonna take it back out. Then you're gonna have a bad year and you've got no money. And you can't cut it out of the budget.
Amendment, it will be put in. You won't be at zero. All you have to do is 25 million and you got your million in there. Matt's amendment makes it very simple. Everybody should vote for this.
Dana, you had your half?
Yes. Once the county took all the stimulus money as lost revenue, all of it, all $11.8 million, it became unrestricted and it's all fungible. So I don't know how you can tell your constituents that Washington County got $11.8 million in stimulus, but yet we have to raise your taxes 2.66% because of bureaucratic reasons. These are people that are dealing with inflation. They cannot handle an increase in tax levy just because we need to keep building the base every year. And Brian, every year we do build the base, and that is for the hard days. By building the years, it compounds every single year. Increase the levy 2% or whatever, close to the tax cap. You're compounding every year. That's where the fat is in the budget if you have a lean year. Not saying, oh, that line item is empty. I mean, come on, be real. You say you want to listen to input and everything else, but every time there's input, you say, no, no, no. When Dana Hogan just showed you, it's the same thing. It's conditions-based, and it's a great way to bring the levy down to zero, which I think when you get this much stimulus money, I don't know how you can have a tax increase.
Supervisor Shaw.
Yes, I hate to say this, but I'm going to be like Bob Hinkie, and I told you so. I love it when he uses that line. But when I was budget officer, I proposed to the finance committee before the budget was presented what our parameters were. And we agreed on what we thought was safe usage of fund balance. That didn't happen here. So now this debate and this argument is based twofold. What is a safe amount of fund balance to be used? And then you have to decide how to cut it if it's over that amount. So here we are, and so we got to sort through this. And my concern, and I totally agree with Matt when he said we have to cut fund balance by $1 million. I verified this with some other supervisors, with other people in the county. Here's my concern about fund balance. This year, we've had a phenomenal growth, sales tax. The use of sales tax, I apologize for that. now I've confused everybody.
Okay.
I'm not like you, Bob, I guess anyways. But the sales tax, we've picked 25 million in this budget. But what if it's a fluke? I don't think we'll have an ounce of trouble this year with getting $25 million, none whatsoever. In fact, we might get more, which makes Matt's amendment moot, and Brian is safe. But how much money was dumped in this economy in the last year and a half by the federal and the state government? What if we're only at 23 or 24 million next year, which is way more than where we were last year, because we've captured a lot of our out-of-county sales tax? Then this budget has set a bar so high, we can't afford it a year from now, and we'll be raising taxes 15%. And I've seen it raise 15% one year, and then it went 30 or 38% another year. And it's because we use too much sales tax projection. And so if we have to break this down further with this motion, set what you feel is safe for sales tax and then figure out how to make the budget work. But everybody has to recognize this sales tax is a fluke. And I'm really concerned that we aren't taking that seriously and hurting ourselves 2 years from now. So how you want to approach it is your choice. But when I was a budget officer, we set that bar in the beginning. It eliminated all this argument on what's the right number, because now we're trying to protect our own little ideas of where this money should be spent. If we didn't have it to fight over, we wouldn't be fighting that right now. So really what we need to do is decide. If the board is comfortable with 25 million, which I'm not, then keep on going. And I'll tell you, I'll be like Bob Hinkie. I told you so 2 or 3 years from now when you have to raise taxes 15, 20%. That's the scary part. I was here in 2000. I've seen how things have changed since then. We're not doing this right, and I'm hoping we can get it right now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Dean. Supervisor O'Brien.
I'd like to ask a man down the left who has followed the sales tax probably closer than anyone else over the past probably 25, 30 years. What are your thoughts, Al?
Well, I'm sure I'll pay for this later, but I'll tell you that I do think that the sales tax is artificially high. I made myself a note when Mr. Hicks was talking because I'll tell you what I like about this, and I think Mr. Hogan maybe said it best. If Brian's right, and I'd like him to be, then the $1 million still goes to the capital project, because normally I wouldn't like to see cuts to the capital plan. The capital plan has to happen. So normally I wouldn't be in favor of that. But I made some notes when Matt was talking, and I think Mr. Hogan maybe reiterated it very eloquently. This is a win-win. If 25 is the number, Brian, God help me, I hope it is the number. I hope 27 is the number. If you are correct, there's $1 million still going to the capital plan. Because if you were wrong and it came in at 24, say, we would be using $1 million of fund balance because that $1 million would have already been committed and there's no way to back off it. So I'm not convinced 25 is our new number, but I really hope it is. I think that there was a lot of cash infused in the society over the past 18 months that will dry up at some point, and whether the spending habits change, if I could give you that, I'd go play a lottery ticket. But I think the conservative approach is really what Mr. Hicks is proposing, and that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Yes, Brad.
So, actually, the $1 million was never going to be in the budget until I had a discussion with Mr. Shaw, because that's where the sustainability is by not going to zero. By going to zero, you take out the sustainability, and that's where Matt Hicks said that he wanted to go later. When I listened to what Mr. Shaw just said, I wasn't here when he voted for those 2 large increases on the tax levy back then, but I can see that your sales tax was very constant, so I don't know why you would have had too much levy. And your rule of thumb was always to levy what you made the year before. So that was the old style of doing it, so I don't know how accurate any of that information was, because your sales tax was, those 2 years was dormant at 13 million, and it was actually up from the year that you passed the first increase. So, and it went up again when you passed the second increase. So I don't know where those comments come from, whether you misremember, but I'm just looking by the numbers that are there. When you increased the levy by 38%, the actual sales tax increased by $1 million, or by 600,000. No, 1.4 million. So
Can I answer this?
I don't know how that happened.
Go ahead, Dan.
Here's how it happened, Brian. You grew the budget faster than the growth. And if you look at your budget, what you have, you've grown it faster than the growth. Now, everybody knows, I'm assuming, that on a 2.5% increase of salary per year for our employees, you're crowding $1 million. You're over 800,000. I don't know that, maybe more, maybe it's close to $1 million. That's right in the get-go. So if your sales tax doesn't grow fast enough, you fall behind. That's my concern, is you've grown the budget so big, our sales tax isn't grown fast enough, or won't grow fast enough to cover it. And that, even though it was growing then, that's what happened. We got ahead of ourselves. And I wasn't on when those two went in. I was already out then, but that's what occurred. And then it occurred back when I was in, and this is the exact situation of what occurred that caused it down the road 2 or 3 years. So I hope that answers this.
Well, my question there is because I'm looking at the actual history, and we've all got it, and it shows in those years that you raised it. I mean, from year 2001, it was 11 million. The next year you increased the budget by 9%, it went over 13 million. In 2003, it was still 13 million when you increased it 15%. The next year it was increased 38%, and it went to 14.4. So I can't see how it backed off if it went up every year. That part just doesn't figure to me. So I'm going there. As far as where we are with overgrowing our rates or whatever, 2 years ago, your first budget, we put in all our revenues long before we knew what was coming. And if it hadn't been for the internet sales tax coming, it would have been horrific because those numbers weren't real. I'm going the opposite way around. The 6 million that's in, I'm only including that probably 3 million is what's sustainable in the future, and I'm staying under those parameters. Those were my parameters for building the budget. So I don't see how you said I'm ahead of the game when I'm trying to stay 3 steps behind. I guess we just don't know each other's mindset.
Thanks, Chairman. We got an amendment on the floor. Can we please address the amendment and then get into further dialogue about hypothetically how we want to address the budget?
Yes.
Can we address this amendment that Mr. Hicks put on the floor? Mr. O'Brien?
I would like to make one comment, and that is I like Dan's comment about that. It was a 2.5% increase, but we didn't know what the dollars were. Just wanted to bring that up. That's what we do a lot of times. We talk in percentages and we don't know what the dollars are.
Right.
And that makes a whole big difference. So anyways, thank you, Dan. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm just saying that you proved the point that I was trying to make. We really don't know. We talk about percentages, what the dollars are.
I can go on with more details, but it's like Jay said, it's getting past what the amendment is. I'd rather stop it and stay with this budget.
Okay, so could we, one more time, we're going to cut off the discussion, if that's all right, everybody. Read what the amendment is one more time, because you had a lot of discussion and we all understand what it is we're voting on.
We're simply changing 2 lines in the budget. We're changing the appropriation from general fund to capital projects from $1 million to 0. We're changing the sales tax revenue from 25 million to 24 million. I believe that's all we're gonna vote on now. I will then, at some point, after discussion with council, offer an amendment to say anything over the sales tax number of 24 million, if the amendment passes, up to 25 be funneled into capital projects to replace it. So if the number in the budget is correct, everything's gonna work. Just trying to keep it simple because I have to apologize. I've got several more, so I guess I started with the wrong one. Is that as clean as I can get, Debbie?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Does everyone out there understand the amendment that we're about to, vote on? If not, please raise your hand. Okay, Deb, do a roll call on this, please.
Mr. Hanky,
Yeah.
Mrs. Fedler,
No.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
No?
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Ward,
no,
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Half,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
No.
Mr. Skelly,
Yes.
Mr. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clary,
No.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Rozell.
Yes.
The amendment is passed, 3,147 yes, 1,113 no.
Okay, so that brings us to,
I have a quick question.
yes, Dave.
We've been going for, what, 2 hours and 45 minutes? Could we take a 5-minute break?
Sure. So we will now recess for, let's make it 10 minutes, because I know we'll never be back in 5. And Matt, when you're back, we'll continue with your next amendment. Okay.
I think we should mute.